We are all just one bad decision from incarceration. Larry Daniel was convicted of first-degree murder in 1986 and spent 29 years in prison. This is his story. We're here at Noah's Halfway House in Tampa, Florida, where thousands of ex-convicts come to transition from institutionalized prison life back into society after spending 30, 40, even 50 years in prison. Hi, I'm Chris Wolf. So please join us as we go inside and speak to one of the men who's been recently paroled. Our guest today was a nationally recognized black belt karate expert and business owner. When he lost focus and got involved in the sale and distribution of marijuana and cocaine, he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison in January of 1986. Larry spent almost 30 years in some of Florida's most violent prisons, and he is here today to tell his true story about his crime, his life in prison, and his transition back into the free world. Please welcome Larry Daniel. Larry, welcome.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, welcome to Men Going Home. We're here on your front porch in this very nice neighborhood with a ton of personality and even live music from the church next door.
This is a great neighborhood for this transition house to be located in, and I'm glad to see you guys make it up from Miami to see us.
Thank you. Larry, as I researched your story, you had a very normal childhood. Your father had a military career. He fought in the Korean War. Your mother worked for the United States Postal Service.
Yes, my childhood was very normal. Everything was pretty much by the book. There was nothing exciting or dull or lackluster from it. And, I was raised the correct way, right or wrong, Catholic upbringing.
Yeah, your life changed at age 11 because you loved the show, the television show, The Green Hornet. And Kato, played by Bruce Lee, and you became very interested in karate, and I believe your father actually put you in karate lessons, correct?
Yes, that's correct. It was a result of my fixation on Kato as one of the lead characters of the Green Hornet. He was the bodyguard for the Green Hornet, and I saw him kick a guy off a boat into the water, and it just mesmerized me, and I said, that's what I want to do.
And as good as you became in karate, you actually had to learn control because at a very young age, in your first two tournaments, you legitimately gave somebody a karate chop and you broke one opponent's arms and the other opponent's legs.
I did have to learn control because as a kid starting off in karate, I wasn't very good. And I didn't have my coordination down. I couldn't get my left and my right. And I just really, really had to work on that. So they took me and they just gave me a technique, a knife hand chop or a shuto, to practice on. They thought that would just keep me busy. Well, what they didn't realize is how busy I would become with it. And over what I did is I actually calloused my hand and conditioned my hand, and nobody was aware of it.
Larry, I believe your father taught you a very strong work ethic because you practiced and practiced and practiced. And by the time you were 19, 20, 21, you were already entering global karate competitions, you were winning money, and you were actually the captain of the U.S. Midwestern karate team, correct?
Well, first of all, my dad was a stickler for detail, and he believed you could achieve anything if you practiced hard enough and long enough. So that was instilled in me.
Now, at this time, you were attending Chicago State University. You transferred to Northern Illinois University. However, again, you seem to have lost a little focus in academics. You were focusing on karate schools and the business aspect of karate. Talk about that.
Well, when I was residing at home in Chicago with my parents and attending Chicago State University, my focus was still martial arts, education, etc. However, when I transferred to Northern Illinois University, through no fault of the university but my own fault, I started to deviate because I was no longer under the restrictions of my parents and I no longer had that discipline at the house. And I started engaging in the college life. And the college life, the drinking, the working in the bars as a bouncer. And even though I was still doing my karate, the part in the bars with the bouncer, I started to relax in some of my academics.
I also believe you wanted to be famous, correct?
I wanted to be the most famous man in the world.
Talk about that.
Ever since I was 11 years old, I just wanted to be famous. I wanted to be good at something, and I wanted to be the first black to make a martial arts picture that everybody would go see. And at that time, they didn't have movies like that when I was first starting out. And that's who I wanted to be, and that's what I wanted to be. So I dreamed of becoming that good in martial arts that people would take notice. They'd have to take notice of me.
You actually competed in tournaments where Chuck Norris was competing, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Chuck Norris, Hollywood greats were actually competitors in all of the divisions, and we competed against them, and they were actually forerunners. They were in front of me by age, and they competed. They were champions. Then they retired, went on to movies, and I was trying to follow their footsteps.
Fast forward, age 27, 28, you started using marijuana, crack cocaine. As you said, you got caught up in the drug world. And I believe you also started selling, as you said, sizable amounts of cocaine, kilos, pounds of marijuana, correct?
When you step into something, sometimes you just don't realize how dangerous or how deep it can go. And that was definitely something that I didn't realize how far that I would fall. And the people that I dealt with were becoming increasingly more dangerous. The bigger the paycheck, the more the risk.
You also said something that was very interesting, and I'd like you to talk about this. You said, stupid is a muscle, and you can get dumber. Talk about that.
Yeah, stupid is a muscle, and you can exercise it and you can get dumber. Sometimes you think something is luck, or you think it's confidence, your ability to do something. It's just chance, because you got away with something once, you just lucked and got away with it. If you keep playing with the law and you keep playing with odds, you're gonna get caught, you're gonna get detected, and things are gonna happen. And you're gonna have to pay for your consequences.
So the beginning of the end, based on my analysis of your story, was when I believe you got a friend involved named Benjamin, and he found a way to take cocaine, add $7 of chemicals to it, and double the volume of the cocaine, correct?
Ben was like a genius. He was just incredibly smart. I wasn't privy to the process. I'd watched him, but I never knew what the chemicals were. I'm just looking at him. But anyway, he would take a kilo of cocaine, go through this process, and then he would test it. And when he tested it, he's running through a heat test, he's running through a liquid test, and all these things are coming back, certain colors are melting at a certain temperature. And then when we took this product to places to sell, the other people would run through these identical tests, and they'd give that seal of approval, and it passed with flying colors.
So this was a little bit of a secret, and you told Benjamin, do not tell my other business partner, Ron, correct?
Oh yeah, correct.
Why?
Because that was the way Ben was making his money. And if he ever told Ron, then Ron wouldn't need Ben any longer, because he would know how to do it. That was the reason that he had Ben in the first place, because I said, I got a guy that I think that might be able to help us.
A conflict starts between Ron and Benjamin. What was the conflict about?
The conflict was about Benjamin was exchanging pot marijuana to Ron's wife, and she was giving him coke in exchange.
And Ron didn't know about this?
He didn't know anything about it, because she was taking coke from his supply and his stash and giving it to Ben, and Ben was giving her pot because she liked pot instead of cocaine.
So did you know this was going on?
I was aware of it on the surface, but I didn't realize how deep it was going on, in the fact of she really didn't appreciate the way Ron was treating her. And I think she made some stuff up to tell Ron to make him feel differently towards Ben than he already felt.
So now at some point, this boils over and you, Ron, and Benjamin are in a car in Florida,
Yeah.
and they start physically fighting, correct?
Correct. I'm driving the car. We're supposedly going to pick up some pot in the middle of the woods, which we have done before in different places. And a fight breaks out between the front and the back seat, between Ben and Ron's in the back seat. The fight breaks out. I got to pull the car over. We stop the car. We get out the car. Ben's talking about what is he trying to do, and I'm like, hold it, because I just didn't think it was going to go like that. They're talking and they're arguing, and Ben's like, you're trying to kill me, and they start having a discussion, and Ben comes closer to Ron, and Ron kills Ben,
How does he kill him?
stabs him.
So he just pulls out a knife out of nowhere and starts stabbing Benjamin.
Yeah,
Was it pretty obvious that he was already dead?
it was. Yeah, he was dead.
So what'd you guys do at that point?
Well, I was stuck for a second because we just there's a murder that's been committed. We're in the middle of the world, and what happens now? What do we do now? And so Ron said, "Well, how do I know you're not going to give him up to the police?" I'm like, "Oh man!" I said, "Listen," I said, "this whole thing shouldn't have happened, but it happens, so we got to figure out something else to do. We got to figure out something to do." And from there, we had given each other a word that if something happened, that you tell the truth about what happened and just get me straight.
So in essence, Ron was sort of your boss, correct?
Right.
So he tells you, take me home, and then you come back and get rid of the body.
Yeah, and before I did that, there's one thing I did leave out, that he told me that he wanted to make sure that I wouldn't snitch him out. And so I needed to get my hands dirty. And so he handed me the knife, and I stabbed the corpse.
Why? So he could just say that you stabbed him too?
Because that means I stabbed him too.
But Benjamin was already dead by the
Yes.
time you stabbed him.
Yes.
So Benjamin's laying outside on the ground, and you leave him there. What did you do?
I went somewhere for about a day and a half and spent some time by myself. And then I left and went to Chicago.
So how much time went by before, I believe, Ron was apprehended?
Yeah, maybe 2 weeks.
So you didn't hear anything about this for 2 weeks?
Right.
Just silence. And then 2 weeks later, how did you find out Ron had been arrested?
I get a call from somebody in Illinois, and they tell me that some police are looking for me in relationship to a homicide that occurred in Florida.
And what did you say?
I was quiet because the people that I was staying with, they were giving me the information. They knew all of us. They knew me. They knew Ron, and I go, okay, I got it.
So then when he's in custody, he decides to open up about the murder that took place in Florida.
Exactly.
And he says, you did it.
Exactly.
What happened?
Well, all lights turned blue. Now everybody's looking for me as the murderer of Benjamin Purnell.
Now, it was my understanding you went in voluntarily and spoke to the police because you didn't kill this man.
That's it.
So what happened next?
Well, I went in under the thought process that even though they had Ron in custody, Ron was going to tell the truth. So when I went in, I gave them the story that they need to talk to Ron, et cetera, and it was all a big misunderstanding. When they talked to Ron, they would understand it. And they were like, really? You sure that's your final statement? Yeah. I'm like, yeah. And boy, when that statement came out and hit me in the face, now I'm trying to change my story and flip and say that it was Ron. Because at first I'm not saying that. I said, you need to talk to Ron.
Yeah, you talk to him and he'll tell you what happened.
Right.
But he told the police that you killed Benjamin.
It's over. Because the first guy that tells the story is the guy that gets it. And they were going for Ron's story. And it was just a battle.
So now from Illinois, you've been extradited to Florida.
Waived extradition.
And the police they ignored your truth and they charged you both with first-degree murder?
Correct.
Did you have a lawyer?
I had a lawyer.
So when you told this lawyer, look, I didn't do this, put me on a lie detector test, I didn't do this, what did he tell you?
I didn't understand what he said at the time, but what he told me is, Larry, we're talking about a white man here. I'm like, what? I'm like, what does that mean? I had no idea, coming from Illinois to Florida in the Bible Belt, the differences of the color barrier lines and how that was used in a dispensing of justice or even investigating certain things, how people looked at you, statements, everything had a color basis to it.
Was the prosecution keeping the electric chair on the table?
Oh yeah.
So they were going first-degree murder, they wanted the death penalty.
Yeah, but it is true, and being a student, after I went to prison, I studied law extensively, and they were absolutely 100% correct according to the letter of the law.
Was there a trial, or did you plead out?
I pled out.
And what was your plea?
My plea was for a minimum mandatory 25 years, and then I would be eligible for parole. And that is what I pled to, and that is what I believed, and that is what my parents believed, that after 25 years in prison, I would be eligible for parole.
And what was that like when a man made you stand up and said, I now sentence you to life in prison, not eligible for parole for another 25 years?
That was probably the most horrifying feeling I've ever had in my entire life. It just felt like all the air was sucked out of the room and out of my life was sucked out of my soul.
I've known you for over 10 years now, and I only know you as a man who walks the straight and narrow and always tries to do what's right. But I'm sure back then you were no angel.
No.
And when you went to prison, you were still smoking pot, and I believe you were stealing other people's drugs. Tell us about Calvin Black Cat Butts and his effect on your life.
Calvin Butts, we called him the Black Cat. He was a fellow martial artist, competent, excellent. And I was in denial. So I'm in denial while I'm in prison. I'm still getting high, I'm drinking, and I don't have money to pay for these drugs. So I was robbing some of the drug dealers in prison for their drugs. I'd eventually pay them off, but I was taking their drugs, you know? And Calvin came to me and said, listen, man, you're a good dude, but you gotta stop this. This ain't a neighborhood. These people wanna kill you.
So how did you survive 29 years in Florida's most violent prisons?
Well, I tell you, after having 2 run-ins with Calvin from getting high, I never got high again, kept my word, and then I decided to change it around and let's not look at everybody else, let's start looking at me. And I started taking steps in my own behalf, in my direction, to change what I was doing and how I was dealing with things. And
what was the worst prison you spent time in?
the first time I was at it was Martin Correctional Institution,
Why was it so bad?
because it was a place of war.
Like
The killing fields. That's our name for it, the killing fields.
So what was it like to live in a killing field? Explain that.
Well, you took everything serious. You didn't know how anything was going to go, and you had to be ready for anything to go. Not necessarily with you. It could be stuff happening with other people, and you just had to pay attention how everything was going with them, or if a move was being made, how to avoid the move, how to stay out of the middle of it.
What was the worst act of violence you actually witnessed in your 29 years of prison?
A guy getting killed at breakfast. We were all in the chow hall, and there's something called the wave of silence. And when you hear that, it's something where the sound starts to diminish. And when it starts to diminish, you have to look and see which way it's coming or what's happening, and that'll give you an idea of what's going on. And we were in the chow hall, me and my friend Leon were eating. I heard the sound, I looked up, I saw the guy making the move across the back of the chow hall. I go, we gotta go. And Leon goes, what? And I just stood up. I said, we gotta go now. And the guy was making his way, got him behind him, cut his throat from ear to ear behind him, dropped him in his plate. And then immediately, as soon as the officers noticed it, they ran to the doors and they're trying to secure the doors. Everybody's trying to get out, but they're trying to secure the doors because they need witnesses. And they're gonna try to take this guy down with the knife.
29 years in prison, what was your worst day?
The day that my mother died.
How did you find out?
I was on the softball field, playing softball. And they made an announcement over the intercom that I need to report to the chaplain's office. And I knew then that something was wrong. And I knew then, it was her. And that's a long day, worst day.
When were you actually paroled?
December 14th, 2014.
And what was that like to actually step outside of a prison for the first time in 29 years?
It was probably one of the most amazing moments in my entire life. I knew it was coming, I just didn't know when it was coming.
What was the first, wow, I'm out? What was your realization when you got out of prison?
When I looked up and saw my daughter looking at me, face to face.
And where did you go after you left the prison?
We were on our way to the transition house, Noah's, Tampa, Florida, from Miami.
Describe the transition from living in a prison to not living in a prison overnight.
You just had to relax. It's surreal. You're so busy pinching yourself, just making sure this ain't a dream, it's over. And now starts the new beginning.
If you could speak to a room full of Larry Daniels at the age of 19 or 20 years of age, what advice would you like to talk to them about?
I'd like to say, your parents and your guardians and the people that are around you that are telling you that you're not doing good things and you need to change your life, the thing that they're not telling you is every temptation that you're running away from and running to, the things that you seek to do, all these things existed when they were your age. And however they resisted those, and they took their chances and their gamble at being real gangsters and working 40-hour jobs and sacrificing for you so that you could become who they know you can be. You gotta stop playing around. If you keep throwing darts at the law enforcement system, I guarantee you, they will get you and they'll eat you alive.
Larry, you're a good man, and I wish you all the best, and I thank you so much for being a guest on Men Going Home, and I'm sure I'll see you again in the near future. Thank you so much.
So. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Larry Daniel. I'd like to introduce the participants in this evening's show.
Over the years, I've met hundreds of life-sentenced men who ended up in prison because they made bad choices and bad decisions. And what I've learned is that we are all just one bad decision from incarceration.